Thank you for staying tuned and welcome to Newsround, where we recap stories that made headlines during the week. I am Bukola Koka. The top stories. At least 100 die and over 3,000 displaced after torrential rains washed away dozens of homes in Mokwa, Niger State. Federal Capital Territory Administration seals off building housing National Secretariat of the People's Democratic Party in Abuja and other properties over unpaid ground and tenancy rent. Former President Bola Tinubu, former Nigerian head of state General Yakubu Gowon, and other West African presidents mark the 50th anniversary of the Economic Community of West African States. Plus, President Donald Trump's administration halts scheduling of new visa appointments for potential international students. That's Newsround in view. A Newsround begins with the devastating flood that ravaged Kwege community in Mokwa local government area of Niger State, where at least 100 persons have lost their lives and over 3,000 have been declared missing. The incident, which occurred during a torrential rainfall late on Wednesday, caused widespread destruction, with residential homes submerged in Tafing Maza and Anguwan Hausawa communities in Mokwa town.
Call it a furious flood, and you won't be wrong. That's the state of affairs in Kwege town in Mokwa local government area of Niger State, following a severe early morning downpour on Thursday, which culminated into a flood disaster in the area, sweeping away anything in its wake. Meanwhile, the National Emergency Management Agency, NEMA, says it has activated its MENA Operations Office to deploy search and rescue officers and mobilize support equipment.
It's a very tragic situation, unfortunately a very sad one. As you can see, we've been on ground providing, in conjunction with Red Cross and other organizations, providing search and rescue. And what I can see is quite devastating. According to our records and the number of bodies so far, we have about 111. But now talking to the head of the district, he's telling me that they're estimating over 200. But to our own records, we have 111 bodies. We've already started. So far, we have food and non-food items available for them. And we also have a mobile clinic. We've also come with mobile water purifiers so that they can have access to clean water. And what we're asking them to do as the community is to ensure that they have a clear list of numbers of both missing and the dead and how many people lost their homes, so that we don't go around chasing figures.
On his part, the state governor, Umaru Bago, is commiserating with the people of Mokwa local council area over the disaster, as he directs the State Emergency Management Agency and other concerned groups to take necessary action.
And to the nation's capital now, where the Federal Capital Territory Administration, FCTA, sealed off the National Secretariat of the PDP, the headquarters of the Federal Inland Revenue Service, and several other properties over non-payment of ground rent for more than 10 years. During the enforcement exercise, the FCTA's Director of Lands, Mr. Chijioke Nwankweze, explained that the properties are part of the over 4,700 land titles revoked in March 2025 due to ground rent debt.
It's day one of the enforcement exercise by officials of the Federal Capital Territory Administration to repossess properties defaulting in the payment of ground rent. The first stop is this property in Wuse Zone 5.
Wait one more round.
They moved to another property in the same axis. The third stop started calmly and soon generated into an altercation between the team and officials of the Federal Inland Revenue Service.
The
FCTA officials eventually had their way and sealed the premises. The agency denies owing the ground rent.
On the 19th of February 2024, we wrote to the AGs and there's an acknowledgement letter here, telling them to look through our account, reconcile our payments that we made from 2000 to 2023, and give us a treasury receipt. And they have not responded to us, only for them to appear at our offices today without notifying the service.
Unrelenting in their pursuit, the FCT officials proceeded to seal more properties, including a hotel, the headquarters of the National Agency for the Prohibition of Trafficking in Persons, NAPTIP, and the National Secretariat of the People's Democratic Party.
We've gone to a number of properties and sealed them, as we did say we will do. This is a copy of the revocation notice and the evidence of service. This is him, served since the 14th of March 2025. The owner of this property, Senator Samaila Maman Kofi, was owing 28 years ground rent. And then FIRS, 34 years. One of them is 34, 25 years. So we keep proper records. When you pay your ground rent, you have to be issued with receipt of payment. Let the FIRS present the receipt of payment issued by the Lands Department or the FCTA. FIRS, too, they claim they own the property. But in our records, they don't.
This is the 8th building being sealed off by the FCT administration over non-payment of ground rents. The administration has promised that it will continue this enforcement exercise in order to send a clear message to property owners in the territory that it is no longer going to be business as usual. From Abuja, Kumbi Aboluade, Channels Television News.
And staying in the nation's capital, on Tuesday, President Bola Tinubu sought legislative approval for a comprehensive external borrowing plan totaling $21.5 billion for the 2025 to 2026 fiscal period. The request, which is aimed at financing critical projects cutting across various sectors of the economy, particularly infrastructure, health, education, and water supply, was read on the floor of both chambers of the National Assembly during Tuesday's plenary.
The President of the Senate arrives the National Assembly for the first plenary of the week, and flanked by principal officers, he extends greetings and interacts with school children to commemorate the Children's Day as he makes his way to the chamber. A request from President Bola Tinubu is high up on the agenda. President Tinubu is seeking approval for an external borrowing plan of $21.5 billion, as well as 65 million euros for the 2025 and 2026 financial year.
It has become essential to pursue prudent external borrowing to close the financial shortfall. These funds will primarily be directed towards critical infrastructure projects, including sectors of power, railways, healthcare, amongst others.
In a separate letter, the President requests the Senate authorization of 757.9 billion naira for the issuance of federal government's bonds in the domestic debt market to settle outstanding pension liabilities.
It will enable the federal government of Nigeria meet its obligations under the CPS and restore confidence in the pension industry. Positive welfare effect on the retirees, as this will enable them to meet their basic needs, such as payments for routine drugs, rent, school fees of their children, and other family needs. This will improve the health and avoid untimely death of the retirees.
By the same token, same requests submitted in the House of Representatives were read.
Since the borrowing is for the settlement of federal government of Nigeria pension obligations to retirees, it is an essential investment in human capital development, which is allowed under the Fiscal Responsibility Act of 2007.
Back in the Senate, a third correspondence emerges.
I write to request the kind approval of the National Assembly for capital raising of up to USD $2 billion in the domestic debt market towards the implementation of the Presidential Executive Order on foreign currency denominated financial instruments, that is local issuance program, and related matters ordered.
The president further stated that recommendations for sectoral investments will be made by the Minister of Finance and Coordinating Minister of the Economy, subject to presidential approval and appropriation by the National Assembly. All three requests have been referred to the Committee on Local and Foreign Debts for consideration within 2 weeks. From the National Assembly, Gloria Umezuke, Channels Television News.
On Wednesday, the House of Representatives passed a resolution to investigate the alleged violation of the Students' Loan Act. This is sequel to a motion of urgent importance on alleged unethical practices in the disbursement of student loans by Honorable Aliyu Abdullahi. The lawmaker cites cases of students who have graduated still receiving loans, as well as loan payments to institutions even after students had paid their fees, amongst other infractions.
Wednesday's plenary begins with yet another set of defections to the All Progressives Congress. Representative Ngozi Okolie from Delta State decamps from the Labour Party, and Representative Olanrewaju Akingbaso decamps from the People's Democratic Party. Motions of urgent national importance are taken and adopted, one of which is on the humanitarian crisis in Kano State.
I rise on a sad note and with a very heavy heart to move a motion of urgent public importance on the need for a quick intervention by the National Emergency Management Agency, NEMA, in Dogwa and Tudunwada federal constituencies of Kano State over the devastating windstorm that ravaged communities in the two local government areas.
Another motion alleges a violation of the Students' Loan Act and calls for investigation.
Concerned about reports of mismanagement and lack of proper verification, including instances where tertiary institutions upload inflated school fees on the NEL Fund portal, cases of final year students receiving loans after graduation, and disbursement made to tertiary institutions even after students have fully paid their tuition fees to avoid delays.
The attention of the House is then drawn to the poor state of Nigerian missions, especially the United States of America, prompting a call to the president to appoint Nigeria's ambassador to the United States.
Further notes with dismay that the Nigerian Mission House in New York is reportedly indebted in rent payments and has left over 30 staff, without salaries for over a year. The House is therefore called upon most humbly to resolve as follows. Urge the federal government to immediately appoint the Nigerian permanent representative at the United Nations and High Commissioner for the United States of America. Further urge the Minister of Foreign Affairs and the Office of Accountant General of Nigeria to urgently intervene in the situation in the United States mission and save the mission and other affected missions from immediate ridicule, embarrassment, and operational deficiencies.
On a bill for an act.
Meanwhile, a bill to amend the Armed Forces Act scales second reading.
To ensure that at least 15% of women representation in the enlistment, recruitment, and appointment of service personnel required by the armed forces to provide and maintain a gender-responsive compliance.
Similarly, the 2025 budget proposal of Rivers State also scales second reading. The House of Representatives also considered and adopted a motion on the need for an integration plan for internally displaced persons in the country. And meanwhile, the House has now adjourned till the 17th of June, and that's because of the Salah celebration coming up. The Speaker says committee engagements will still continue regardless. From the National Assembly, Terry Ikumi, Channels Television News.
And when Newsround returns, U.S. President Donald Trump pauses scheduling of new visa interviews for international students. Do stay with us. Thanks for staying with us. And now to the celebration of the 50th anniversary of the Economic Community of West African States, ECOWAS. President Bola Tinubu, who was joined by other leaders from the sub-region for the celebration in Lagos, reaffirmed Nigeria's commitment to the regional body. In his address at the occasion, the president said the vision of ECOWAS represents a part of his renewed hope agenda.
The day begins with a brief ceremony at the NIIA, reenacting the signing of the Treaty of Lagos, which led to the establishment of the ECOWAS in 1975. The Nigerian Institute of International Affairs happens to be the venue of the signing of the treaty 50 years ago. Chairman of the Authority of Heads of States and Government, President Bola Tinubu, appends his signature to the treaty, as well as current presidents and representatives of government present at the ceremony, and top officials of the NIIA. The event is witnessed by the only surviving founding member of the ECOWAS, General Yakubu Gowon, the Nigerian Minister of Foreign Affairs, Yusuf Tugar, the Minister of State for Foreign Affairs, Bianca Odumegwu Ojukwu, and other members of the President's cabinet. The new declaration of the treaty is then read out.
In honor of the dream of our founding fathers, we, the heads of state and government of the member states of the Economic Community of West African States, have signed this declaration, done at Lagos this 28th day of May 2025.
Leaders quickly proceed to the Echo Hotel and Suites for celebration of ECOWAS Jubilee, where a number of side attractions buttress unity and integration within the community, including a 4-minute painting by speed paint artist Seun Adebayo. It is of General Yakubu Gowon. In his address to participants at the occasion, President of the ECOWAS Commission, Omar Toure, appreciated General Gowon for being the only surviving founding member. He praised ECOWAS for achieving regional integration, responding to crisis, and wading through recent geopolitical tension.
We have demonstrated to the world that the African solution actually works. Fired by a strong solidarity among our member states, we are constantly looking out for each other as we solidify our community.
Closing out the ceremony, President Bola Tinubu recognized ECOWAS' tireless work of integration.
Let us renew our compact with one another with courage, clarity, respect, and determination. That we will promote trade, we will promote unity, we will conquer all forms of challenges, that is terrorism, banditry, and hatred.
This has been a very special and significant celebration for the Economic Community of West African States, which today has been highlighting its achievements. But as President Bola Tinubu said, it's not about celebrating the past, but embracing the future. He spoke to the youth. That was something we saw a number of times in this hall. People addressing the young people, and then he said he wanted to hand over to them a banner without stain. ECOWAS looks forward to another 50 years with more achievements in tow. From the celebrations here in Lagos, Amarachi Ubani, Channel Television News.
And to judicial matters now, the Court of Appeal Abuja has affirmed the election of Governor Monday Ukpebholo of Edo State, who is the candidate of the All Progressives Congress for the September 21, 2024 governorship election. Delivering judgment, a three-member panel of the appellate court, led by Justice Mohammed Danjuma, unanimously held that the appeal of the candidate of the PDP, Mr. Asue Ighodalo, was unmeritorious and dismissed it. However, Mr. Ighodalo has rejected the judgment and is appealing it at the Supreme Court.
The courtroom of the Court of Appeal is filled as supporters from the All Progressives Congress and the People's Democratic Party in Edo State and lawyers wait eagerly for the commencement of the judgment. The three-member panel of justices led by Justice Mohammed Danjuma goes straight to deliver the judgment, stating that the tribunal erred in admitting the beavers machines as evidence as requested by the PDP candidate. The appeal court also expunged the evidence of the 133 beavers machines tendered at the tribunal by the petitioners, faulting the tribunal. Furthermore, the appellate court held that the tribunal was correct to find that the PDP and its candidate dumped evidence on it without clearly demonstrating non-compliance and overvoting in line with the Electoral Act or switching on the said beavers machines at the proceedings. The appellate court held that petitioners needed to call witnesses to speak to the exhibits they tendered. It further held that the few witnesses presented by the PDP and its candidates testified on issues unrelated to the matters before the tribunal, and they failed to prove their allegations of overvoting. The appeal court held that the PDP assertion of collation of incorrect scores in affected polling units are grossly incompetent due to their failure to prove the same. The appeal court held that the tribunal was right to hold that there was no merit in the PDP and its candidate's petition against the governor. It subsequently dismissed the appeal and affirmed the judgment of the tribunal.
Let's come together as one family to develop Edo. That's what we stand for. But I will not stop without congratulating my principal, the executive governor of Edo State. That's Senator Monday Okpewulu, and the amazing people of Edo who voted for us. Congratulations to all of you, and God bless you all.
However, the PDP are planning to appeal the judgment at the Supreme Court.
We will request that our members stay calm. We will get the CTC. The lawyers will advise. The lawyers will go through it. We will go through it. And nothing stops us from heading to the Supreme Court. And there are so many grounds for the appeal to the Supreme Court.
Focus now shifts to the Supreme Court for the final determination on the Edo governorship election legal battle. Emanuela Ekele, Channels Television News.
And there's more from the court. The Federal High Court in Abuja has admitted video evidence, including one where the leader of the proscribed indigenous people of Biafra, Nnamdi Kanu, is seen inspecting a radio transmitter allegedly smuggled into the country. This is one of the highlights at the resumed hearing of the alleged terrorism charges preferred against Mr. Kanu. However, the IPOB leader maintains that he made statements under duress sometime in October and November 2015.
Another week in the trial of the leader of the proscribed indigenous people of Biafra, Mr. Nnamdi Kanu, who is present in court for the day's proceeding. He rubs mind with his legal team before the commencement of the trial. At the resumed hearing, the third prosecution witness, an operative of the Department of State Services, during the trial within trial, dismissed claims that the department used threats of solitary confinement to extract statements from the defendants. Mr. Kanu had claimed that one Mr. Brown, a DSS operative, made a threat about solitary confinement. But the witness clarified that the names of the officers who took part in the interview are James, Ibrahim, and Collins, with no Mr. Brown among them. The witness maintains that the defendant was given preferential treatment and expressed shock at the allegations of using force to get him to make certain statements, including calling former President Goodluck Jonathan and former President Muhammadu Buhari unprintable names. According to the witness, the statements were allegedly made when he granted an interview with a US-based online medium, and it was during the same interview that the defendants used the term zoo to refer to Nigeria. The contentious items were 3 written statements made at the DSS headquarters by Kanu on October 23rd, 24th, and November 4th, 2015. The statements, along with video recordings of his oral statements on October 21st and 23rd, 2015, were also tendered. At this point, Justice James Omotosho ordered the conduct of trial within trial to clear the air on the admissibility or otherwise on the statements the defendant claims were gotten under duress. In the 3 footages played in court by the prosecution to prove that Nnamdi Kanu made his statements voluntarily, Mr. Kanu admitted being the founder and director of Radio Biafra. At some points during the trial within trial, Nnamdi Kanu took the witness stand to give evidence in his case. In his testimony, he claimed that he was denied access to his lawyers and struck by a DSS operative when he was picked up in Lagos in 2015. But the same operative later apologized on their way to the airport en route Abuja. Meanwhile, Justice James Omotosho has adjourned the matter till May 29th for the continuation of hearing and to deliver a ruling on the admissibility of the statements. Emanuela Ekele, Channels Television News.
And to end Newsround now, U.S. President Donald Trump's administration has ordered its missions around the world to stop scheduling new appointments for student visas as the State Department prepares to expand social media vetting of foreign students. This move comes during a wide-range crackdown on some of America's most elite universities. The Trump administration sees these institutions as too left-wing, accusing them of failing to combat anti-Semitism when pro-Palestinian protests have unfolded on campuses. Several hundred protesters, including Harvard University students and professors, demonstrated in support of foreign students at the Harvard campus on Tuesday, while also protesting Trump administration's efforts to cut off funding to the university. And that sums it up on Newsround. Thank you so much for watching. I am Bukola Koka. Bye for now.